Greetings, all you symbionts, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch, Season 2. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hola.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 2, Episode 4, Invasive Procedures. Alternate title, Kai Hard 2, Kai Not As Hard.
Okay. I don't,
You don't have anything better?
Sorry, no, I'm just really thinking hard on that. I was like, I understand that they evacuate the station again, but I don't think there were any other, like, diehard features of it. But then I was also thinking, like, wait a second. If we have 2 now, we're going to have 3 at some point.
We'll see. A quick note on spoilers, in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode, obviously, and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series, but we won't reveal anything too big, like when Deep Space Nine blows up and is replaced by Deep Space 10. This episode originally aired October 17th, 1993. It was written by John Welpley and Robert Hewitt Wolfe from a story by John Welpley. And I looked up John Welpley, and he's written a bunch of TV, but his only other Star Trek credit is the Suddenly Human episode of Next Gen.
Which one? Oh, is that the one with the...
It's like a human kid that was raised by aliens, and then...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So, I don't know if there's any connective tissue between these two stories, but...
Well, that's weird, because I'm pretty sure there's an episode coming up next with a similar story to that.
Yeah, Interesting. Anyway, it was directed by also good old Les Landau. Good old reliable Les Landau. I think I had something I wanted to talk about, but then I forgot to write it down in my notes. So we're not going to talk about it.
Okay, then.
But yep, good old John Welpley. Oh yeah, it was just... So something I was wondering is, what does it take to get that story by credit? That, like, how much of the story do you have to pitch before you've, like, the story is by you?
That's an interesting question. I assume that it's like I was going to say, I assume it's like when somebody just submits a story or maybe like a spec script and then they take it and, run a different direction with it, and they can't be like, oh, we can't give this guy no credit, but he didn't actually write the episode because this doesn't look that much like the episode he wrote. Yeah. So...
Because I imagine he can't just go in and say, what if somebody tried to steal the Dax symbiont? And then just get a credit from that? Like, there's got to be a little bit more work put into it than that, right?
Okay, so according to Wikipedia...
Okay.
Under the WGA screenwriting credit system...
Oh, good, okay.
A story by credit is used when a writer was hired to write for story, when the story idea was purchased from the writer by a WGA signatory company, or when the resultant script is based on a sequel story devised by the writer under WGA's jurisdiction. Okay. So I guess there's very specific rules within the Writers Guild about like what requires that and what does not.
So at some point they bought the story idea from him.
That seems to either, according to this, either they hired him to write the story, or they bought the story idea from him. So I mean, they paid him for it in some way.
Okay. Interesting. But still, it kind of begs the question, like how much of the story did he pitch before they bought it from him, or?
There's nothing in the wiki this time about like how much the story changed or anything as far as script and story goes.
Yeah. Anyway, so diving into this episode. It's a dark and stormy night on Deep Space Nine. Everybody but the main characters have been evacuated from the station due to a space storm that doesn't seem to actually do any damage or seriously disrupt or affect operations.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, how long exactly was this after the last episode when also everyone was evacuated? Like, should they just all have stayed off?
People get an evacuation fatigue.
So I want to look at the star dates here and see if I can figure out when this episode is in relation to the last episode. Okay, so the last episode... Oh, stardate unknown on the last episode. Okay, what about the one before that, though? Do we have a start date for that one? Because they happen sort of one right after the other. Nope, still not known. All right, let's go back again. Nope. Okay, so there's been no start date given since the beginning of season 2 until now, apparently.
And there's no real story clues that might tell us when it is either.
Yeah.
While making their rounds, battening down the hatches, Odo and O'Brien encounter Quark sitting in an airlock praying or something. He claims he's just missing his evacuated brother Rom, which is an excuse so stupid that Odo and O'Brien eventually just give up arguing with him out of sheer annoyance.
He actually almost seems like he's convincing O'Brien, where he's like, "Do you have any brothers?" And O'Brien's like, "Well, yeah, actually, I have two." He's like, "And did you ever have to say goodbye to them?" He's like, "Well, I mean, yeah." As if, like, he talked about when he went off to the academy, and so, like, he wasn't going to see them for a really long time, as opposed to Quark, who's saying goodbye to Rom for, like, a few days, and it's like, This is exactly the same situation.
Right. O'Brien seems willing to run with it, at least. Or I think he's just tired of discussing it.
They really should have taken more of a look around. Like, Odo, at the very least, was definitely sure that Quark was up to something shady here, but then they just walk away.
Yeah. Yep. As they drag him back to his bar, the camera pans over to the wall of the airlock to reveal something. Something is on that wall. And that's our stinger. That's the thing that's going to get us interested in this episode.
A thing on the wall.
Is that there's a gizmo on the wall that we can only assume, because the camera lingers on it, is not supposed to be there.
Right, yeah. We have no idea if it was supposed to be there, and except that the camera's like, uh-oh, look at this.
Like, it doesn't have, like, a big skull and crossbones or anything on it to tell us that it's some sinister device.
But, spoiler, this is the way that Quark lets the bad guys onto the station.
Apparently.
And I feel like I have to say, just at this point, since we're there, I'm just like, this is, like, the worst thing Quark has ever done so far, and it's like almost leads to, like, possibly everyone getting killed. And Kira's just like, yeah, when this is over, you're done, Quark. And then we never hear anything about that again.
I mean, to be fair, he believed it was just so some guys could sneak onto the station and he could broker a secret deal for some, I don't even remember what it was.
So yeah, some tubes of stuff. That just makes him, like, stupid in addition to, like, being super. It's like, I'm going to circumvent major security protocols. Because honestly, I'm not even sure. Like, he apparently circumvents the protocols that would prevent them from bringing weapons on board. And so it's like, well, wait a second. Why do you think they need to bring weapons on board to be able to buy these thingies from you?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Maybe the security protocols detect money or something, or...
Oh, you're bringing too much money on board. You're going to have to declare that and pay, the tax or whatever.
Yeah, they're going to do the thing that the cops do where they just steal your money and you never give it back.
But apparently even Armin Shimmerman was not a fan of this, because he's like, I feel like Quark commits, like, an unforgivable crime here and never gets any punishment.
Yeah, although it's kind of hard to imagine what they would do. Because presumably it's a pretty little ship. And it's only gonna have a few guys on it. And so it's like they're not going to be able to secure the station for very long. Like, Starfleet's going to grab it back almost immediately. Like, you can't imagine that they would be coming for this really specific purpose.
It's true. I mean, they could be coming to, like, shoot everybody and steal a bunch of stuff. Or, maybe this is, like, the way that the Cardassians arranged to slip in by bribing him through a third party, and then they retake the station or something.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is, don't play with the security system, Quark. Like, you don't know what you're doing.
But there's a quote in here from Armin Shimmerman where he's like, I worry that when Quark doesn't get punished for really sizable crimes, because it makes the character less important, since his acts trigger no consequences, and it makes Odo look foolish in that he's the lawkeeper and can't get this little troll punished.
Yeah. I mean, maybe... Who knows? Maybe he had to pay a fine or something off screen.
He lost all that latinum that he stayed to protect.
Apparently he has just 600 bars laying around that he tried to get off the station.
I mean, I assume that's what was in the suitcase last episode.
Yeah, so I assume that's a lot. That sounds like a lot. I don't know.
I feel like we've talked about the exchange rate on Latinum before, and we weren't able to find a good answer.
Yeah, it's just whatever the writers want, I think.
But I mean, I think bars are like the second biggest Latinum denomination or something. I think it was like slip, strips, bars, and bricks or something like that. So that does seem like a lot.
Yeah. Especially if Latinum has valuable comparable to gold today. Yeah. Obviously, gold is worthless in the future. Anyway, the crew and ops receive a distress call from a ship trapped in the storm and give them clearance to dock. O'Brien and Odo go back to the airlock to let them in. Out of the distressed ship jump 2 Klingons, a Trill, and a Kefka-Forian. Although Memory Alpha says she's a Tyran based on her makeup. And one other episode of like Next Gen where an alien had that makeup. Ah. They hold O'Brien at gunpoint and make Odo liquefy and get into a little container thing.
Which, maybe the smartest attackers that we've ever seen. Yeah. When they came knowing about Odo and planning specifically for Odo.
Yeah, it's just like, let's get that guy out of the equation as soon as possible. You know, that guy can shapeshift into all kinds of stuff and just he can turn into a tripwire. Let's just not deal with him. They take the party down to the infirmary where they have Bashir put Odo in a stasis chamber. Bashir tries to think of something sneaky to do, but he can't think of anything, so he just puts Odo in the stasis drawer.
Yeah, I kept waiting for him to be like, slip open the thingy somehow, or like leave it not all the way closed.
Yeah, or like put a little timer on or something.
But I guess we find out later that like even if he had, they can't get Odo out of that box easily. So
true. Although I don't know if he knows that at that point.
Right.
Next, the boarders head to Ops, where they lock things down and take everyone's comm badges. The crew quickly deduces that Quark messed with the security systems in the airlock and let them in. This annoys Kira. Dax notices the Trill man and stares off blankly. Cisco asks if she knows the man, but she just shakes her head in confusion, even though it turns out no, she doesn't know him and has no prior connection to him. This is a moment where I was like, oh no, are we returning to this form of Dax acting? The staring off into space.
Well, there's a lot of like similarities between this and the Dax episode that kind of bothers me because like ostensibly they're both about Dax, but Dax probably gets like the least performance of anybody. And also they both seem to make her main character feature willingness to die for someone else to the point that I'm just like, so do you just want to die? Is that...
Yeah, definitely. It's when the episode is about Dax will have the least agency possible, and the episode will be barely about her while other people try to rescue her. In the bar, Quark inspects the merchandise he apparently thought he was going to be selling the Klingons, when one of the Klingons, whom I shall name Asshole Klingon, comes in to screw him out of the deal face to face, then drag him to Ops with the other hostages. And it's just bugging me. What was he trying to sell? Because it was this really weird sounding thing.
Okay, hold on. I can find it. Let me go back to the episode. Yedo is Asshole Klingon, by the way.
No, he's Asshole Klingon. Other Klingon is Tuvok Klingon.
Yeah, I was about to say, Tuvok Klingon is definitely the name for the other one, but... Okay, Deep Space Nine. I remember it being like some sort of biological something or other, but that's all that I'm remembering off the top of my head. I'm going to have to bring it up.
It doesn't say in Memory Alpha what it was.
No, it doesn't. I'm going to have to actually watch this thing. I don't want to save by bundling my home and car insurance. Here we go. Oh, but now I'm going to have to watch another 30-second commercial. Damn Paramount Plus. Yeah, I was wondering if you'd picked up on Tuvok Klingon.
Well, I saw Tim Russ in the credits.
Oh, I didn't
Liquid
pay
data
attention to
chains.
the credits. Liquid data. Okay, so it wasn't like biological. Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah, whatever that is, liquid data chains is what he was selling, and he stuffed one of them down his collar.
Maybe it has to do with like the technology that we see coming up on Voyager of like what do they call them? The replace the isolinear chips. Like the gel packs.
Maybe that really is Tuvok in disguise. Because he was infiltrating the Maquis at the beginning of Voyager, right?
Yes.
So maybe he's infiltrating the Maquis, who we haven't even met yet, and is double infiltrating as a Klingon mercenary. I don't know.
Bio-neural gel packs are the things on Voyager. Okay, that's it. That was bugging me.
Great.
A show that we're not talking about.
Yep. The invaders soon reveal their purpose. To steal the Dax symbiont and put it in the Trill guy, Varad, who apparently blames all his woes in life on being rejected for a joining. When Bashir says he won't do it, Varad shoots O'Brien. Varad apparently considers this some kind of no-turning-back Rubicon moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, he, attempted murder to a guy. I don't know whether that's worse than, taking a bunch of hostages, I guess, but...
I mean, you're going to jail either way, dude. It's now it's really... I tried to take over a Federation Bajoran station, but now it's really serious. Dax agrees to go through the procedure in exchange for Varad's word that nobody else will be harmed. The totally believable word of these guys.
Yeah.
Which Quark does correctly call, and he's like, these guys are going to kill us. We got to do something.
I don't think they were going to kill them. We get to towards the end of the episode when the plan's all going well, and he's like, okay, we're leaving you here to watch them until I'm through the wormhole, and then you guys leave. So it seemed like legit. They weren't going to just murder them.
True. Sisko, now apparently an expert on Trill joinings, assures the others that Dax is young and healthy, and they will have plenty of time to get this symbiont back into her before she dies. Which I guess this is now the rule of how Trills work. I don't remember this ever being established, that if you get the symbiont back into them in time, okay, their life will be saved. I haven't seen that Next Gen Trill episode in a long time, so I don't remember what rules were established in that one.
I mean, they put one into Riker in that episode, so I feel like it's all kind of not at all what it becomes in this show. So
yeah,
I don't know that you can rely on that at all. The symbiote doesn't even look much the same, and there's a note on that in the wiki where it's in that original Next Generation episode, it was designed to look like a caterpillar with an octopus head, but for the second appearance in Deep Space Nine, the first was in Emissary, the design was streamlined
to look like a generic blob slug thing. Anyway, this conversation they're having angers Tuvok Klingon, who comes over to kick them. They use this stupid move to get the drop on their captors. Sisko impressively bests Tuvok Klingon in a fist fight, but it's all for nothing because Varad's girlfriend knows some kind of kung fu or something, and is able to regain control of the situation.
It's she beats the shit out of Kira, who is has spent her whole life being a ground fighter in this guerrilla war against the Cardassians. So I was like, man, Kira, you should be embarrassed to get your ass handed to you so thoroughly.
I was like, man, Kira's gonna take this lady, and then Kira just goes down.
But there's an interesting note, and I don't know if it's this fight scene or another one later, but it's Tim Russ accidentally punches Patricia Tallman, who was doing the stunt doubling for Nana Visitor, in the face during the fight sequence.
Uh-oh.
And Patricia Tallman, by the way, is one of the eventual stars of Babylon 5. So this is an incidence of some carryover going on. But
sure.
She says, everyone on the set freaked out. But I was like, no, don't stop. That was really good. It looked very authentic.
Yep. Gotta use it. So, yeah, I guess she learned this kung fu on the mean streets of Kefka 4 or whatever, where she came from. While Bashir does the operation on Dax and Varad, the people and ops wait around. Kira chews out Quark for his stupidity, which is pretty much the worst punishment he gets this whole episode. Sisko tells Varad's girlfriend that he's going to be a completely different person after the procedure, which quickly proves true as he triumphantly returns to Ops as a joined Varad Dax. Sisko tries to use Varad's new access to Curzon's and Jadzia's memories to get him to give the symbiont back, but Varad says no. It describes his plan to use his new knowledge and skills to help the people of the Gamma Quadrant.
Somehow.
Those good, simple, humble people of the Gamma Quadrant. Obviously he has not been paying attention to the people that we've been meeting. Who are you going to help? The Wadi? The Hunters? Some other people who may be over there? I don't know if this plan is going to go how you think it's going to go. Sisko declares their friendship over.
Now just imagining him showing up to like that hunter planet and being like, hey, do you guys need some help like getting your tasks ready for the hunt or something?
I notice your tasks still have to sleep 18 minutes a day. We can get that down. Varad goes to Sisko's office to quietly wait out the storm, and Sisko uses this opportunity to do some more psychologically needling on Varad's girlfriend. Quark tries jumping Tuvok Klingon and is quickly defeated, but he feigns unbearable ear pain, and the girlfriend takes him down to the infirmary.
Yeah, it's a funny scene where he like jumps on his back and is like screaming and like slapping at him.
He's like, I got him!
100% Quark fight style.
Yep.
Which,
is Quark, I think, trying to redeem himself, which I approve of. The best way he can.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if anyone gave any thought to it, we're supposed to be like, oh yeah, Quark like helped save the day, so
it's all good now.
He should be forgiven for his horrible crimes.
So when they get to the infirmary, at first Bashir doesn't recognize the ruse, but after some subtle signals from Quark, starts to play along. Luckily, asshole Klingon is a complete moron and doesn't pick up on any of this.
Well, I mean, Bashir had that whole scene earlier where he like basically shouts asshole Klingon down and forces him to help the patient.
Yep. Bashir has him play nurse on Quark's ear, then jumps him with a hypo spray. A ploy he probably wishes he would have thought of earlier when he had the exact same opportunity.
Yep, I was like, at any given point, well, this guy is letting you do tons of doctoring, so at any given point, you could have filled a hypo spray with useful knockout stuff, or even murder stuff, and then, oh, whoops, I dropped this thing, and as soon as he's distracted for a second, just jab, jab. Like, You don't have to be a good fighter, and honestly, we've seen it go through not only clothes, but through like this Klingon armor. We have seen guys get these hypo sprays. Mm-hmm. So it's not even like you have to try that hard.
Although, as you pointed out, it probably wouldn't have been very effective at that time because he couldn't get into the...
that's true, yeah.
The Odo box. But yes, they get Odo out of stasis and Quark uses his safe-cracking skills to free him from the container. Back in Ops, Varad and Tuvok Klingon realize what must have happened in the infirmary and run off to their ship to escape. They take Kira with them as a hostage, so they'll have one more person to fight when things go sideways. Varad's girlfriend reveals to Sisko that Varad mixed up the plan for their rendezvous in the Gamma Quadrant, raising serious doubts about his actual intentions to actually meet up with her, now that he no longer needs her.
Yeah, that was probably, like, the moment where I'm just like, man, this guy really is an asshole. Like,
yeah.
I mean, okay, he's pretty bad. He engineers this whole thing so he can steal a symbiote, meaning murdering someone. And honestly, I think his mental stability is very questionable, that this is the solution he came up with in the first place. So, like, I was like, maybe they had a reason why you shouldn't get a symbiote. Like, I think you're proving them correct by doing this. But at the same time, you're like, oh man, he's like, I spent my whole life studying like every hour of every day so I could do this thing. So you feel a little bit bad for him that it doesn't work out for him. But
sure.
And then like this girl who's dedicated her entire life to helping him achieve his goal. Once he gets there, he's like, yeah, I don't, sorry, we're just not working out anymore. I guess I'm gonna go.
Yeah, he definitely has this complex where he thinks like the amount of work he's just decided the amount of work he put in entitles him to have his dreams come true or whatever. Anyway, Varad and Tuvok Klingon get to the airlock and find that their ship is gone. After trying to open the door, which clearly has no ship behind it. They pay no attention to a cart sitting weirdly in the middle of the airlock that wasn't there before.
The guy totally looks at it and then just like is like, whatever.
Until the cart transforms into Odo. Odo and Kira take down Tuvok Klingon while Varad escapes, right into the phaser sights of Sisko. Varad says that he knows his good friend Benjamin won't shoot him and risk killing the Dax symbiont. Sisko says, "Don't call me Benjamin," and shoots Varad.
Well, like, he gives that dramatic speech. He, like, walks right up to Sisko and lowers his own weapon. He's like, "You're not going to shoot me." And I was like, well, probably not from this range for sure, because, like, that's going to be even worse. But I was like, now that you've put your weapon down, there's nothing stopping him from, like, punching you in the face or, like, grabbing you and choking you out. You don't seem that strong. So, like, I don't know why Sisko's just like, I guess I'll let him walk away for a minute.
Yeah, it's like he has this weird turn where he's like, he realizes, like, he called me Benjamin after I told him we weren't friends anymore. And that's what sets him off. But luckily, the symbiont isn't hurt. Varad wakes up with the symbiont taken out and back to being his loser self. He needs his girlfriend once again, which is, I guess, what she wanted. Newly rejoined Dax accesses Varad's memories from the symbiont and confirms that he is indeed a huge loser, and laments that she'll always have those loser memories inside of her. The end.
Which, that may be... Okay, that, and I guess in the part where she, like, wakes up and no longer has the symbiote and kind of freaks out, like, that was some good performance. Like, they gave Terry Farrell something to do there. And
sure.
There's even a quote in here where she talks about, like, she loves this episode because it gives her this chance to really differentiate between, like, who this character is as a joined host and who this character is by herself. Where when she's joined, she's like, no, yeah, I'll give up my life for everyone. You can have the symbiote as long as you don't hurt anyone else. But then once she's just Jadzia again, she's like, I'm like a 28-year-old and I've barely gotten to live my life at all. Wait, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those two moments, they actually gave her something to do. And I thought that Terry Farrell did it really well. And that the ending seems almost like this, like, dramatic portent for how this might affect her in the future, only it never does. So,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, and an important note is that also Sisko makes sure that Tobin Dax's memories are intact.
Yeah, he does specifically call out. Well, I think it's because we just learned about Tobin in, like, a previous episode, so it was like, wait, what's the...
so this does have to be after last episode.
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
Well, maybe Sisko already knew about Tobin.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, Curzon could have told him at some point.
Kira didn't know about him.
But yeah, so it's just like... The writers are like, wait, what have her hosts been? Who have we established? And they're like, well, I mean, there's Curzon and Tobin? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like Curzon and Tobin, they're all in there. He's like, oh yeah, Tobin's in here, don't worry. His knowledge of
sublight
engines or whatever is completely intact. But like you said, this is just another Dax episode where Dax doesn't do anything. And in fact, maybe some of the best Dax acting comes from Varad.
He does do some good Dax acting. I will agree.
Not Jadzia.
Like he pulls off being these two very different characters very well.
Yep. And he's played by John Glover, who's like, he's in Gremlins and like a million things. He was for some reason I recognize him best as the scientist who created Bane in Batman and Robin.
Like, apparently, when Terry Farrell was asked after the show who her favorite guest star was, she's like, oh, John Glover. He played Varad in this one episode, and he's such a great actor, and I was so psyched that he did our show. And then he said something that he really liked working with me, and I was so excited and flattered.
Nice. I guess that's the thing to do if you're a guest star on Star Trek, is just be like, oh, I really enjoyed working with you.
That's the kind of thing that actors probably just should be doing in general. Like, there is no downside to publicly being like, or even just privately being like, hey, that was really good. I had a great time, because you never know when somebody who starts out small on one of these shows is going to get really big later, in terms of other actors, but also, directors, writers, whoever. So just being nice in general is probably the thing to do in Hollywood.
Yeah. And I think, like, John Glover is one of those, I think he's one of those convention type guys. I might be wrong about that. But he's like he's a guy who's been in a bunch of stuff and has kind of like a nice little fan base or whatever.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking until you were talking about him. Like, I knew the name, but I couldn't kind of picture what else he'd been in until you started listing off. But I think I remember him best from, he does a couple episodes of Numbers, where he's a really interesting character.
Yeah, he's got a really big resume.
Oh, he's in the movie Payback as Phil. I don't remember Phil from that movie. I have to go back and watch that now. Oh, he plays Riddler in Batman the Animated Series in 3 episodes.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, he played Lex Luthor's dad in Smallville.
I never watched Smallville. Oh, he's Bryce Cummings in Scrooged. That's like the other guy who works there that he hates. It's been a while since I've seen that, too. It's the season to watch Scrooged, actually.
Yeah, I saw that name in the credits. I was like, that name sounds really familiar. And yeah, he's just a worker. Okay, anyway, back to this episode.
Right.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, it was another kind of Daxless Dax episode. I have another note that is, who comes up with these titles?
See, this one I don't hate as much, not nearly as much as like the last one.
I mean, it at least kind of fits.
Yeah.
In that there are some invasive procedures going on,
Yep.
but it's kind of not the focus of the episode.
Well, so there's the invasive procedures, the medical procedures, but they're also invading the station.
Ah, okay. A little bit of a double meaning there.
And then, if you want to stretch it even further, Cisco like starts invading her head and like trying to turn her against that guy.
Yes. Sure, why not? I'll go with it.
Oh, but I forgot to mention when we got to the ending, it's like they get to the place and Odo transforms back from being that cart, which it's almost a question of why bother being the cart when we established in the last episode you can just be the wall.
Yeah.
And no one will know any better.
Why be a big cart like right in the middle of the airlock where somebody could like trip over it or something?
Or be the floor. I assume in terms of the show, you do that because then you don't have to show him transforming. All you have to do is pan back and the cart is gone and Odo is there. So you don't have to spend the money on that. But logically, Odo could have just been done much more subtle ways. But anyway, like Kira starts fighting the Klingon and then Trill Guy just runs and Odo kind of watches him go. And I was like, Odo, you could easily like whip out a tentacle and like wrap around his neck or something and pull him back. There's no reason for you to just stare at him leaving, but whatever.
Yeah, he decides to focus his energies on helping take down Tuvok Klingon, who he's just not having a good time this episode. He loses a lot of fights.
Yeah, he's not the best Klingon. He has that whole speech about how like the Empire is weak or whatever, but this guy, he's not the greatest.
Yeah, he's another loser. Like that's why he's not in the Klingon army and has to be a mercenary because he kind of sucks.
That should have been the name of the episode, The Losers. They invade the station.
The Losers Club.
One of the things that is like Robert Hewitt Wolf says on here that the show was created because the producers wanted to convey to the audience the idea that not every Trill was joined. And that it's really actually kind of difficult to get that. And I think she says 1 in 10 here. I'm pretty sure later on, like the number is supposedly even smaller.
They brought up that point in the trial episode, though, in the Dax episode, didn't they?
Maybe? I don't recall.
How she had to study her whole life just to qualify.
That does sound familiar.
Yeah. It's a really, like, special thing. Like, she had to get, like, 2 PhDs or something. Anyway, so what do you want to do? Jump into ratings, or?
Yeah, sure. What do you rate it this time?
Have a quick... Okay. I'm probably going to be a little bit more generous than maybe I should be, but I'm going to give it a Lieutenant Commander.
Okay.
It was just fine. It's one of those, I think of like a vegging out on the couch episode. Like, I imagine myself and I'm watching like on cable and this rerun comes on and then I'm just like laying on the couch and I see this and I'm like, do I want to change the channel? And I'm like, nah, I'll watch it. I don't know if that's praise for the episode, but it has just enough. I mean, the story is paced well enough, and there's enough just nice little like moments to keep you engaged. So that's what I'm going to go with. But it's definitely not going to go on my list of favorites. What do you think?
So I like the episode. I am actually, yep. I am actually. I like the concept. I like the story that we put together here. And I mean, I poked some holes, and there's some of this stuff that it's like, this doesn't make sense. But I mean, I started out from the beginning being like, hey, these guys they came prepared to do what they're going to do. Like, they planned well, and it really does go pretty well. I feel like probably you should have brought your own doctor just in case the doctor actually refused to do this. But speaking of the Doctor, I feel like we're once again getting Bashir not being a creepy weirdo, but actually being like a good character. He has some moments in here that I feel like we're seeing some strong stuff from Bashir, and he's developing into the kind of character that we're going to see later.
Maybe.
And despite the fact that, as we mentioned repeatedly, Dax doesn't get much to do, I feel like the stuff that she does get to do is really good and helps develop her as a character, except for the whole, like, yes, I'll just die some more. So I feel like there's lots of positives here. I also like that even, I mean, ostensibly you could try to call this a Dax episode. It's not really, in the same way that Dax was not a Dax episode, because she doesn't do anything and we don't really grow her much. But it is an episode that gives us this perspective on, like, Trill and lets us learn more about Trills and see some other stuff there, which I also appreciate. I like shining light on some little corners of the Federation that we've been introduced to, especially with Deep Space Nine, but haven't actually learned that much about yet. So I can appreciate that in this episode more so than in the Dax episode, which was just so full of problems that I couldn't even, like, be happy about the information that we did get on Trill or something. So yeah, overall, I like the episode. I do not feel it's as strong as the other episodes that we've had this season. So I'm also going to give it a Lieutenant Commander, and it will be, like, at the bottom of my list at this point. But I still like it, which is, I think, saying a lot that we're, like, 4 episodes in, and I'm like, these have all been pretty good episodes.
Sure. Like, in terms of, like, the previous season, I think we're still kind of keeping a nice consistency.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a nice downbeat after our big 3 episode epic or whatever. You're right. I do kind of like seeing the a person who's been rejected from the joining process or whatever. So that's, like, an interesting, like, new perspective.
I still think that maybe we should have waited a little more between 2 different episodes where the station has to be evacuated. Unless you just use that, you don't have the bit at the end of the last episode where everyone comes back and you're just like, oh, the ships were on their way back. Like, at the beginning of this episode, you're like, oh, all the ships were on their way back, but then the storm came up, so, like, we had to divert them to Bajor or something. Like, it seems so odd that it's like, evacuate the station, everybody comes back, immediately evacuate the station again. But that's a really small nitpick.
Yeah, but I mean that's really, I was thinking about this, like, it's really lucky that he got this opportunity handed to him with this storm. So what was his plan if he never got this chance?
Yeah, that's a good point. And
how far in advance did he know that the storm was going to come and they'd have to evacuate or something?
And that they wouldn't evacuate, like, Dax.
Yeah.
Like, how could you possibly, or the Doctor for that matter, how could you possibly know that, like, those 2 people would definitely be on the station? So that's a good point that I hadn't thought of. Although it did occur to me at the beginning when they're like, oh yeah, this storm came up and we don't know how long it's going to last and we had to get everybody off. At that point, I was like, oh, I remember what's going to happen in this episode. So did he cause this storm somehow? And then after that, I kind of forgot about it until you mentioned it just now. So
maybe he paid a storm creator to create this storm. Like, he found a guy who can create plasma storms and send them places or something. Who knows? But yep, lucky for him, he at least got to make his try. Maybe it was like he was keeping an eye on Dax for a long time, and this opportunity presented himself, and he threw together this plan at the last minute, which is why he didn't have his own doctor, or he just had to hire, like, the first Klingon mercenaries he could get his hands on.
I mean, he clearly did some research since, he knew about Odo and all that kind of thing and what might be able to contain Odo. So,
yeah. I don't know. Once again, I wonder how much the writers really
yeah, they probably didn't think about it that much.
Anyway, ready to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Make this be a quick one? Okay. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Adios.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. But either way, please remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick. And what's that thing? Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies. We gotta streamline that.
Yep. You could just say every once in a while, declare peace, and you did not do the second part, but...
Or we could just keep tacking more stuff onto the end of it, and it just becomes this horribly long, like, chain of quotes.
I'm gonna stop recording, but that's kind of...